Hello, welcome to the White Deer Filmmaking Podcast with your hosts, Mark and Adam. On today's episode, we have a lovely chat for you with Mary Pattisson, one of the producers for the film Palindrome, which is like a moving picture book. That's how I'd describe it.
It looks incredible.
Yes. Incredible, like honestly it's amazing. Not that you'll be able to see it unless you watch it when it's released, and please do,
hopefully will be soon.
Please do, because it's amazing. Like honestly, it's I just have vivid memories, and every single one of them is different, just purely because it is so varied, so wonderful, and can't say enough about it.
Well, in a minute or so, Mary will say
what does about
tell us a bit of a synopsis.
Yeah.
So listen out for that, and then throughout the rest of it, we just talk loads about how it was made and like just really interesting things about the whole production.
Yes. I'm incredibly passionately in favour of everything that they did. So
yeah,
you'll hear that too.
I think it's an interesting chat, and I think you'll like it.
Yeah.
Do you want to say anything else?
No, I'll let Mary speak for it. It's one of those where it's really difficult to get some of the things that we're talking about simply because it is so picturesque, but I think we do a good job of explaining the scene and situation, and there's a few a few key moments which we go through, which I'm sure as filmmakers people will understand and relate to. So it's really good.
It's a film that sticks in your mind.
Oh yeah,
for days and weeks after watching it.
Well, as for days.
So hopefully this chat will go a bit of a way to explaining some of the elements to it, and showing a bit of what the set must have been like.
Absolutely.
But yeah,
cool.
Listen out at the end for the code.
Your code.
The discount code. But yeah,
cool.
Let's get into it.
Enjoy. Hello, Mary. Thank you for speaking to us. Would you like to introduce yourself first and give a brief synopsis of the film Palindrome?
Hi, I'm Mary, and I was kind of the assistant director on Palindrome. And the film is split into two main narratives, one of which is about a guy called Fred, who's in a bit of a dream fever, and he's trying to escape various forms of reality in different kinds of ways. And then the second narrative follows Anna, who's a struggling artist, and she's struggling in various different ways. One of the ways in which she struggles is because her art has become very notorious only because of the tragedy that she's experienced in her past. So she's kind of balancing all these different emotions. But the whole film is kind of surrounding mental health and politics and life and death and a whole range of crazy themes.
Yes, that's true. I know when we said, it's great if you could give a synopsis, I was like, well, good luck, because there's loads. It was, I think for me, it was one of the best things about the film was how much it dealt with and how it dealt with them. I actually don't think in any film I've ever seen so much covered, and in an interesting way as well, in a very stylized way, in a succinct way, and I think there's a lot which you can experience on multiple viewings and things. So it was really well done in that regard. But yeah, how did you get involved with the film?
Well, I was originally hired as a production assistant, so Marcus had put out a crew, whatever, he basically wanted an assistant. So I started in May last year, 2019, and I was just kind of doing various audition schedules and stuff. But as time went on, I was getting frustrated that nothing else was being done. So I kind of took it upon myself, I guess, to start organizing the shoots and stuff because various things weren't happening. And I like to organize. So I kind of just started assuming the producer role because I wanted to see the film get done. But yeah, I mean, what you were saying before as well, with there being so many different layers and themes and things that you could watch again. I mean, I first read the script and had no idea what it was about. And I didn't have any idea of what it was about until after maybe the fifth read and a big debrief with Marcus. But then even when we saw the final product, I was then seeing other things that I hadn't realized before. So even though I was working the whole way through it, the first time I saw the finished product, I was still putting all these other things together.
Yeah.
So yeah, it kind of keeps on giving.
Yeah, it's a very good way of putting it, and very accurate. But I think the thing about it for me was that almost the transition between the first half, if you like, the first narrative, which is featured, and the second, when Anna comes in, it's like, whoa, where did that come from? And but it works, and I didn't expect it to, and I just carried on watching, thinking, okay, yeah, no, I can deal with that. I mean, it's a big switch, but it's also, I think, because obviously there's a lot of changes in like color and things, it just opens the narrative up a lot more, and there's a lot more variety in there, which I think that's probably why it won the awards that it did, is because everything to do with like art and everything was really well done, things like that. So yeah, a lot of things which probably on paper maybe don't work, but come together to form a really nice, charming, unique film.
Yeah, and I think a lot of those things you don't necessarily come across, although they're not that obvious when you first come across them, but actually it works as a film because Marcus had thought so carefully about various different things. For instance, some of the dialogue in the first narrative mirrors the dialogue in the second narrative.
Exactly.
Some of the characters are reflected in each narrative, even the colours sometimes are reflected, and all these kinds of things, that some of which were just a coincidence that we went on to set and we thought that will work in both things. But a lot of the stuff that happens, actually, you realize Marcus has thought so much about that when it then comes onto the screen and you see it in the 2 hours or however long it is, you then realize that there are all those parallels, and that duality really works when you then see it, which not necessarily you might have seen when you're on set or just reading the script.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess a question then, Palindrome, is that title, was that the original title, or based on a few things, was it always intended to mirror across? Was that always the intention?
Yeah, I think that was always the intention. But I mean, Palindrome, I think, was always the original title. But even the characters, Marcus definitely had those in his head, the actual characters, and they all have different meanings for various different reasons. But when we were holding the auditions and stuff, he would give them different names because he didn't want to give anything away. So the final product of all the characters and everything that happens was definitely what he wanted initially. But when we were holding auditions and doing all the organizing and telling people about it, it was all very different at the start.
Yeah. Was it easy actually to like for any cast members or any crew members to come on at a later time? Was it easy to, I guess, get them on board with what was going on and making sure that it wasn't, because it could be initially quite confusing, like you found? Was it easy to sort of be like, right, this is what we're going for? Does that make sense?
Yeah, in the end, everyone that we worked with were amazing. Like all the cast who we ended up working with, every single cast member was just really, really nice and accepting and lovely and easy to work with, as were the crew. The crew was amazing. But some people didn't know what was going on, like our sound guy, Jamie. Every day he turned up and was like, I've got no clue what's happening, but this is really fun. I know, like, he had the best time and he was really enjoying it, as were loads of other crew members, even though they had no clue what was going on. And I think the cast that we then had at the end, they were the ones that were not only very talented, but were also very accepting of Marcus's story and very much more interested than maybe some other people. Like I remember we interviewed one person, I think that was for art direction actually, and she was just like, I don't understand what the hell this story is about, and actually I will do a really bad job if you hire me, so I'm going to tap out and say no thanks. So there were a few people like that who were just like, I don't know what the hell this is about. I don't think we're going to really have the same kind of creative vision, so there's no point in collaborating. So the people who ended up staying were actually perfect because they didn't necessarily mind that they didn't know what was happening the whole time. And it made it a lot more fun, especially because the crew were trying to guess what was happening every day. But they were all amazing in the end, both cast and crew.
Excellent. Oh,
yeah.
So it sounds like a really involved process. Had you done producing on films before, and also on a feature film, anything this kind of scale before, or was this the first?
No, this is the first. I've done some assistant directing on short films, and I'd worked as a production assistant, but for companies like internally for really small shoots. So this was definitely the biggest film that I've ever worked on. But at the same time, it was I found it was challenging at times, but not really. It was really good fun, and Marcus and I got on so well that we just worked. I think we just worked so well together that it was never really a challenge to the extent that another film set might be. So the whole thing was just an absolute pleasure and a blessing as my first job on a big film. And because he had such a clear vision of what he wanted, and Hader, the DOP, executed that vision so beautifully, they worked so well together, we all worked so well together, and we all got on so well. So actually, I mean, it was a big film to work on, but everyone did it so well that the collaboration was a very easy process. So it was a pleasure for it to be kind of my first big film.
Yeah, well, that's great to hear. And how many days did you shoot for?
I think about 12.
Wow, really?
That seems
we shot
short.
Yeah, which again was, I mean, looking back, me and Marcus and Hader are like, how did that happen? Yeah.
Were they consecutive days?
No, so I think we did it probably over 2 months.
Okay.
And when we started, the first 2 weeks were very much like, because I just wanted to start. I was just really bored of not shooting, but Hader was getting married. So I kept asking Marcus, I was like, when's your friend getting married? When's he getting married? When's he getting married? I want to start shooting. Can we go? Can we go? Can we go? So the first 2 weeks were quite busy because we organized 5 days a week, I think, for 2 weeks. And then we had a bit of a break. And then from then on, it was like 2 or 3 days a week over the course of a couple of months. But yeah, some days were like in one location for a whole day, like the library, the UCL library. That was a whole day, I think. But then there were some other shoots we were doing like 4 hours in one location and then all getting in a car to go somewhere else. But at the same time, it was all super easy and quick in every location. There wasn't any time where we were over massively, or it just all worked really well.
Do you think that's down to your own organisation, the work that you put in beforehand?
Yeah, I think that was part of it, was that we definitely did a lot of organisation. I mean, I think that's definitely a part of me. I get quite anxious when things aren't organised well.
I'm the same. I'm exactly,
yeah. So it kind of annoys me when people, I don't know, things aren't in the right place or whatever it is. I like to organise. But I think the biggest thing was Marcus knowing what he wanted, and he'd drawn these gingerbread man storyboards. So he had this book, and every single storyboard was just like a gingerbread man in a certain position. And everyone was like, how the hell are you going to bring that on set? There's no way Hader can shoot from that.
Yeah.
But he would show him and they'd be like, yeah, okay, cool, shoot it. And every single scene in the film, you can see it reflected in this gingerbread man book. It's amazing. So I think it was so efficient because he knew what he wanted. Hader was really great, and his whole team as well. The whole camera team were really good. Everyone just worked so well together. I think that's why it was so efficient and fluid, and there weren't any huge issues. But yeah, it was definitely a mixture of both pre-production and then getting on set and everyone just doing their jobs really well.
Great. Yeah, I think I found. I think you probably agree that if everything is very well organised, usually it means that you've allowed time for things not to go perfectly. So you've got that like space to use, if it is going well, and that means you're free to experiment with things, to get the best out of people, and to try something in a different way. And
the work has kind of been done
exactly
in pre-production. You kind of know where you stand. I guess we're talking from the point of view of Mark being producer on the last film that we shot,
and largely my first time as well on a big, well, one of our biggest, and
that feature?
No, that was a short, but set in the 70s. So
it was the most ambitious that we've done.
It was probably the first one where we kind of
there was so much pre-production.
Yes. Loads.
And we were itching to get started in the same way that you were. So
you spent so much time like behind a desk, just making sure that calendar has the right dates in and whatever. Silly things, and then you just want to be on set, which is what you're all working towards. So hearing, definitely reflect that. So that's good to hear shared experiences there.
And I guess as we were touching on the camera team and the visuals for the film, the visuals were really impressive anyway, and I think obviously, like you were saying, it was Marcus obviously had a strong and confident vision of how he wanted it to be, and then that obviously carried through with the cinematography and the set design and everything like that. So I guess I don't know how to phrase it. Just like, is there anything that you can tell us about how that kind of like how you got the visuals from the planning stage into actually looking as good as that? Was there anything? I guess you just had loads of chats. Marcus had loads of chats with the DP.
With his gingerbread.
With his gingerbread book.
Yeah.
Maybe that is it. Maybe that is the key.
I mean, it just
time.
It just sounds. It just was really impressive. So I wondered if you had any more insight into that side of things.
Well, it was definitely the talent of Hader and his camera team, James, his kind of right-hand man. They were just amazing. Every time we got on set, as soon as we were on, they were kind of doing their thing and setting up lights and giving options and doing various kinds of things. So I think it was a mixture of those three, Marcus, Hader, and James, all working together to create something. But Hader in particular is just so talented, and everything that you see on screen is what he did behind the camera. And then I think he was doing a lot of the stuff in post-production as well with the visuals, because he does a lot of GFX type stuff. So he knew what he needed to do on set for it to then be executed afterwards. But I think, it was definitely very impressive what they did, because I was doing a lot of the recce's beforehand, but Hader really hadn't seen the locations until he got on set a lot of the time. So he was kind of just doing it on the spot, really.
Well, I was just going to say, I think it's really obvious that the locations that you chose to use were basically perfect, because every single one, and there were quite significant So what I was going to say is that every shot comes across as like a picture, but the camera team can't make it as good as it can be unless you have everything there to make it.
It's like a DP's dream to go into an amazing location, and the worst nightmare to go into like a white room and try to figure that out. So I guess he would have been quite happy with the locations that you.
Was there a lot that you had to do to manipulate that, or was it all just authentic locations which you used?
Most of it was authentic, actually. We were very lucky. I don't know how we got most of those locations, because some of them, they were amazing. Like, I think, again, it was kind of a mixture of things going into location. And there were a few times, like the neon-drenched basement where Anna's girlfriend gets her head blown off. I don't know if that's a spoiler. And like that, for instance, that wasn't amazing, that room, because there were just a lot of white walls and stuff. But Hader and his camera team went in and they were just like, okay, we'll put this over there. We need a prop over here. And then they had this big colourful light thing that they put up and made the characters look amazing. So they worked with what they had and made it infinitely better a lot of the time. But I mean, some of the locations, like the big hall and the library and all the rest of it, they were really cool. And as soon as we got in, we were like, this is nice, this will work.
I remember there's a bit in it which stands out for me, and it's, I guess, a little hard to describe it. It's where Fred and, forgive me, I've forgotten his name. It's Fred sitting down. It's in like a warehouse, an abandoned warehouse, and it's one of the black and white shots, and it's just a very long shot of Fred being spoken to by, I'm really sorry, I've forgotten the character's name.
It's Daniel.
Yes, and it goes on, and it's just an incredible shot. And it's just watching this scene, and you've got the bird flying partway through it, which could have been a disaster and things. I just wondered, like, so I mean, just relying or having all that to paint this picture, and just relying on the actors then to just be in that world and showcase this story. I mean, was that a particularly challenging setup there or was it just like a case of go for it?
Yeah, that was an interesting day, because we had this kind of big warehouse which was in East London somewhere, and it was an absolute dive. It was horrible. We got in there was just pigeon shit everywhere.
Yes,
Like the whole thing was so run down and bleak. And, you know, the health and safety obviously was ridiculous. But we just got in there and we were like, okay, we'll make it work. And for instance, the shot where he fires the gun and then we found a dead pigeon on the ground, and so we were like, okay, quickly film that as well and put it together, because that's quite funny. But that end scene, that really long one, that wasn't actually planned. That was going to be, everyone wanted kind of different things. I remember Hader wanted to go close and do all these different shots of them, I think, moving around and all this kind of stuff. And they talked about it for ages, and then they were like, okay, we'll just set up here and then go we'll track in really slow. And watching it was like a theatre performance, because everyone was just there, super engaged in this huge warehouse. And it was like we were watching like a Shakespeare tragedy or something. And
brilliant. Really well performed. I watched it and I just thought, oh my gosh. In one part, because the opportunity to act in that way is quite rare in a film. And they did it so well, and I was like, I just can't believe it. I mean, was it one? Did you do like in one take, or did you have a couple of goes at it? Or?
I'm pretty sure that was one take, that really long shot in the end. And I remember afterwards we were like, it looks amazing from here, but I remember the next day Marcus was like, I don't know if that's gonna work, because I think by itself a take that long is like watching, I know it's a very odd experience, But then, and he was like, yeah, I don't know whether we really felt up with that. Like, I don't know. It's so strange. But actually, when I then saw it with all the other shots, and then you got that bang at the end, yeah, I think it works really well. It's nice.
Yeah. I think it depends how much you're invested in the characters by that point, and as to how something like that can work. And obviously, by that point, you're invested in the characters, so you're fully focused on that area of the wide shot, and it's not like, yeah, if you viewed it on its own, it could be like not much is happening kind of thing, but at that point you're focused, and I think that's just an amazing part about the film, to be able to achieve something like that.
Yeah, and that was kind of Marcus's whole ethos as well, was trying to do something new, and that's why it was such a pleasurable experience the whole way through, not only because our working relationship was so good, but also just seeing him try out new things with Hader as well, both of them together, trying to think of new ways to film and new ways to present dialogue or whatever it was, where on paper or everything you've learned in film or whatever it is, you think that's not going to work, that's not going to work. You absolutely categorically cannot do that because that's going to look weird and awful. But they were like, no, well, fuck it, we'll do it. Let's just see. This is the whole point. We're going to try and do something new, see what happens. And that was a really interesting experience. And yeah, it was amazing to watch that relationship the whole time. And then watch a film on the back of that I think actually does work really well and is very interesting, and that you can watch multiple times and always get something new out of.
How much of the crew was people that you or Marcus knew before, and how much of it was kind of new people that you had to get involved?
So Marcus and Hader obviously knew each other very well, and then Hader had James, who he'd worked with before, and I think that was pretty much it.
So everyone else was kind of new, and
everyone else we brought on, we'd just done like normal interview type things. But I think the maximum crew we ever had was like 10 or maybe 15 max. Not even. It was tiny crew. I think it was about 10 every day, more or less. And yeah, I mean, it just worked really well. I think everyone was just so willing to try new things, and no one was kind of too worried about what anything meant, or like everyone had a bit of, an idea, like the makeup artist and costume design, they had an idea of who the characters were and where they were from and that kind of thing. And they were really, really good with their research and all the rest of it. But beyond that, everyone was just working really well together and being like, no idea what this is, but let's go for it.
There's a bit in it which just sort of touching on the hair and makeup side of things, where, if I remember correctly, Anna is walking through the streets of London and she's covered in well, we've already said it, blood and guts and whatever and things. And how did she get away with that? Like, it was that like a...
it was really sad, because I was like, it was in Covent Garden on maybe like a Friday night or something. It was so busy. And she's got this crazy blood makeup all over her face. And so I had like 100 release forms, and we all went outside, and I thought I'd have to hand them out to all these people, because everyone swarmed around the beer gardens, and it's just like it was the heat of the summer as well, so everyone was out. And so Marcus and Hayley, they were like, hey, Sarah, the actress, you start at the top of this road and walk down through the crowd. And I was like, I'm going to have to be on the sidelines, making sure that no one's freaking out and calling the police or whatever. And
is it quite worrying that no one
goes the whole way through the crowd, down the road, not one person looks.
That's quite worrying.
Like, come on, guys, look at her. And she's not even just walking down, she's like sobbing, bawling her eyes out. And she's amazing as well. So I don't know how. I think there was one person who actually made it into the final cut who looks at her a bit, but that was the one person in the whole crowd.
Oh my goodness.
So it was actually quite depressing. Not one person cared.
That's Well, we'll gloss over that and make sure that the London public don't represent them badly or anything like that. But again, like everything, it's a beautiful scene. Not, the content isn't nice narratively, but I think it does just show. The character in such a transformed way. She's just had a tragic event happen to her, and no one else knows. She has to deal with that herself, and it's like a weight on her shoulders. And what does she do with it? Really, really well done, expressing what is a really bad event and making it even worse for the character, and that comes through for the viewer as well. So well done.
Yeah. Well, she was a fantastic actress, and just as a person as well, she's lovely. But as an actress as well, she's so talented. So it was emotional watching her.
Yeah, definitely. So what's next? I know obviously you haven't dealt with a lot with the post stuff. What is next for you? Have you got anything else in line for what you want to work on?
And are you working with Marcus again?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely I'd love to work with Marcus again. I'm hoping as soon as we were finishing filming last summer, he had another idea for a film. And so I was like, okay, well, where's the funding coming from? Where can we start shooting? I'm going to call up these places and I'm going to get a studio booked for September. And he was like, okay, well, we need to get some money first.
Yes.
So I think he does have some ideas in the pipeline, hopefully, because it was just, it was the best experience, the whole thing. So I'd love to work on another film. And myself,
in
I'd
the
like
same
to
role,
do...
would you say?
In the same role with him, yeah, definitely. Yeah. Ideally, everyone, the same would be great. Just make Palindrome again. That would be fantastic. But then, personally, I would like to do some of my own writing and directing at some point, I think. And again, if I could work with the same people, with Hader, with Marcus, maybe in a different kind of role directing, then that would be cool. But I guess kind of see what happens.
Yeah, that makes sense. Is it a case where you're very much into like making films yourself, or being involved with projects which started from the ground up, or could you see yourself working more in TV and things like that, or taking a different route where it is more less indie and more on a different route? Is that something you...
Well, I currently work for I'm on a 6-month contract working for a small production company that make documentaries. And actually, I keep switching because I get very excited about things quite quickly, and then I do one thing and then I come across something else and I get really excited about that and want to do that. But I've always wanted to write, and I do write. That's kind of the biggest thing that I do, that I think I want to work towards generally. But I went into producing and was like, this is really fun. I think I'm all right at it. I'll keep doing that. And then I got a job and I'm now a researcher for documentaries. And I'm like, this is amazing. I want to do this. So ideally, I'd like to do both. My ideal world, I'd be doing feature-length documentaries and feature-length drama. That would be my ideal scenario, I think. And then also doing writing, producing, directing, all of it. But yeah, I get excited by a lot of different things, which is why I never really make up my mind about going down one route.
That's the beauty of the industry, isn't it? There's so many different things you can get involved with.
Yeah. It's so interesting. That's why I love it. And it incorporates writing, art, music. My documentary work now is literally everything in the world. It's amazing. And I'm constantly learning every day, which I think is the most important thing.
So on that kind of note, have you learnt anything that you think would be good advice to other people, to other filmmakers? Is there anything that you learnt on the film or in any of your other work, maybe?
I think it sounds really cliche, but just keeping an open mind and not saying no to things. Like I really have learned over the last couple of years, when someone says, do you think we can do this? Instead of being like, no, that sounds stupid, is going, let's think of every single option of how we can do that and also why you want to do that. But really, really thinking hard of being like, yes, your first answer should be yes. I think it was Kubrick said, if you can think it, then you can show it. And I really think that's so important, is not to say no to anything, whether that's a job opportunity, working on whatever it is, or anything really. But I think most importantly, your first reaction should be like, yeah, we can do that. We just need to figure out how.
On that point, you've just reminded me, there's a couple of instances in the film where Fred is running towards the light, essentially. And I was wanted to ask like how that was done. Are there any secrets you can share with that? Because it was... he's running on the spot, essentially, running towards something, and he can't reach it. And it is a great visual representation of where he's at as a character. How did that come about? How was that planned and done? And
how was it actually filmed?
Yeah,
that was just in a studio. So it was a completely blacked out studio. And I actually think since Stranger Things, because in Stranger Things they do that a lot as well, when she's kind of in that weird limbo space. I think since that, a lot of people are kind of doing those kinds of things. So all these studios are really willing to kind of provide for that kind of scene now. Okay. So they're like, yeah, you're doing that kind of thing. Yeah, we've got a black floor and black walls and a black ceiling, whatever. And then that was Hader's genius. He was just, he just knew how to do it. So he just put up the lights and would change it round depending on which direction Fred was running towards. So he just kind of manipulated the position of the camera with the light. And then they did a load of thing in After Effects as well. And Jamani, who plays Fred, was just running on the spot all day. And, but yeah, that was kind of down to Hader, really, of how he managed to do that.
Brilliant. Yeah, I mean, that is really good. I'll say this now. There's a moment in the film which no one else knows, but the villain is Dr. Gladstone. I think it was. So there's a bit where he's talking to Fred and he's eating an orange. And when I was watching the film, just completely by accident, I was eating one as well. Yeah. And it made me feel like such a villain at the time. It was such a weird moment that I've never had before the film. I was like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? But I think it's just the beauty of the film as well. On a final note, just how many memorable moments there are, and you can't imagine it all being from the same film because they're just completely different pictures. Just a great thing. You scrub through it, and just like, how did that...
as we were just before we were going to do this, and it looks like about 5 different films in the nicest way possible.
It does,
but then it works all together.
So I mean, if people listening, viewing can just find a way to see it somehow, please do. It's just it's a good film, very good film, but also just an experience of something you will never have seen before. And yeah, so many pictures in one nearly 2-hour space.
Well,
amazing.
Hopefully it'll be somewhere on streaming services or something at some point in the future.
I think it definitely will be soon. Yeah, we'll keep you updated.
We'll share that if and when it happens as well, so
absolutely.
That people can watch it.
In the meantime, how can people follow yourself and maybe the film on social media or websites and things?
I always get reprimanded by Marcus because I'm really bad on my social media. So following the film is probably best to go to Marcus because he's really hot on, I think, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. So he does a lot of updates of where the film's at and the awards it's winning and all that kind of stuff. He's really good at that kind of thing. I need to get better myself. I'm really, really bad. And I should be a lot better in this industry. But yeah, I think following Marcus, and he's definitely, up and coming director in a lot of various regards. So yeah, that's probably the best way.
Excellent. Well, we'll put a link to his social media in the show notes as well, and so people can click on it. But yeah, thanks very much for your time. It's been really interesting.
It's been very interesting.
Thank you so much.
Well, that was a great interview with Mary there. I really got a lot out of it. I think that she is very talented at what she does.
Yes, considering she's her first feature.
Yeah, especially of that scale and everything.
Yeah.
And she also spoke a lot about Marcus and the DP as well, their talents. It seems like a talented bunch of people coming together to make something.
Yeah.
But also, you could have guessed that it was a massive amount of talent after watching the film.
Yes, yeah.
So it's not surprising that the individuals seem very talented.
Yeah, know what they're talking about.
We just look forward to the next film.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely one to watch out for.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you want to say anything else, or shall we give the code?
Yeah, I'd just very quickly like to say it's been going for a week now, this podcast, and I'm just amazed at how supportive people have been.
A week?
A few weeks. Did I say
I think you said a week.
Oh, well, I meant
it's
been going for
a week.
And we're
on episode... We're on episode 19, and it's been going for a week.
Yeah.
We've crammed a lot into a week.
We are very talented ourselves. But yes, what I meant to say, if I didn't, it's been going on for a while now, and yeah, thank you everyone. I mean, it's been great to speak to people, learn, relate with people, and hopefully you can see that, every single one is a new experience for us, and hopefully we're sharing something valuable to you. But yeah, thank you everyone.
Hopefully if we're learning, you're learning as well.
Yep. Unless we're just really naive about everything.
Yeah, hopefully not.
No.
We still need people's questions though. Yeah. If there's anything especially that you want to know from these, maybe we'll find a way of telling people who we're going to be interviewing so that they can get their fans to bring some questions on.
Yeah.
Get a bit of interaction going at some point.
Yeah.
But yeah, the code.
Yes. Do we have it? Do we have it? Okay, right.
No,
Just
it's
ready for
there
this.
on the paper.
You see, you do use pen and paper.
You use pen and paper.
Hey.
You can use your touchscreen device as well.
You can.
We won't hold it against you.
Yeah.
Mark will.
Anyway. WDPODMP429. Once more. WDPODMP429. And that is for 10% off any future usage that you may want to submit to us, but you only have a week to do it. So get moving. And yeah, we look forward to
submit on Film Freeway.
Yes.
Follow us on social media, all that kind of stuff. We really do need your approval.
Please. Yes, to exist.
To exist, yeah. We need comments and likes. They're kind of like our nectar.
Yes.
So, we'll see you next week.
Yes. Bye.
Bye.